pagi, Miss Lisa. Terima kasih ya. Halo semuanya, adik-adik, teman-teman, Bapak Ibu, terima kasih sudah hadir di acara Kids Conference hari ini. Oke, kali ini saya mau memandu sesi keynote ya. Kita punya 2 keynote speaker. Yang pertama ada Bramasto Prasojo atau Pras ya. Dan yang kedua ada Afris. Oke, nah nanti saya akan bacakan dulu profil singkat dari Pras ya. Kemudian Pras akan saya persilahkan untuk presentasi. Lalu dilanjutkan dengan membacakan profil dari Afris. Kemudian Afris akan presentasi. Setelah itu kita akan punya sesi tanya jawab. Bapak, Ibu, adik-adik, teman-teman semua bisa mengajukan pertanyaan di kolom chat, bisa juga menyalakan mikrofon, ya. Begitu. Oke, langsung saja saya akan bacakan profilnya Pras, ya. Tadi kita sudah sempat dengar sedikit dari Mas Anton tentang Pras yang luar biasa ya prestasinya. Ini saya punya CV-nya Pras. Sangat panjang daftar prestasinya, jadi kayaknya saya hanya bacakan yang paling terkini ya, mungkin gitu ya. Nah, Bramasto Rahman Prasojo atau yang biasa dipanggil Pras, ini dulu sekolahnya di SMA Chandra Kumala School, Deli Serdang ya, lulus tahun 2020 ini, gitu. Dan sekarang, sudah kuliah sebagai mahasiswa tahun pertama di University of California, Davis, gitu. Jurusannya Aerospace Science and Engineering atau Teknik Kedirgantaraan dan Antariksa, gitu. Hebat ya. Ini saya bacakan aja prestasinya di level internasional ya. Yang pertama, Pras ini memperoleh 2 medali emas di ICYS atau International Conference of Young Scientists tahun 2017 di Stuttgart, Germany untuk kategori Computer Science dengan karya riset Braille Literacy Helper. Wah, ini menarik banget ya. Terutama karena saya sangat tertarik di dunia pendidikan inklusif nih. Mungkin kapan-kapan Pras bisa cerita tentang Braille Literacy Helper-nya ya. Lalu ada satu riset lainnya berhasil memperoleh medali perak dan perunggu untuk level Asia Pasifik di Asia Pacific Conference of Young Scientists di India. Ya, untuk kategori fisika dengan judul LED as a Solar Cell. Yang berikutnya ini yang tadi sempat disebut oleh Mas Anton, ini karya Space Research Project. Yaitu sebuah proyek penelitian microgravity yang bekerjasama dengan Quest Institute USA dan NASA untuk membuat microlab berisi objek pengamatan yang diterbangkan ke NASA oleh NASA ke stasiun luar angkasa ISS ya, atau International Space Station. Luar biasa ya. Nah, dan banyak lagi prestasi yang lainnya. Dan di kesempatan kali ini Pras juga akan bercerita bagaimana jalannya waktu dia masih sangat belia ya, waktu masih kelas 4 SD, tapi sudah bisa menemukan ide penelitian. Nah, mungkin ini kita waktunya untuk mendengarkan Pras dan menemukan banyak inspirasi ataupun ide-ide penelitian dari Pras. Oke, Pras, saya persilahkan. Pras udah siap di situ untuk memulai. Silahkan.
Oke, perkenalan dulu. Nama saya Bramasto Rahman Prasojo dan saya adalah freshman di UC Davis di Aerospace Science yang telah Bu Egal telah bilang. Terus disclaimer, saya pas presentasi ini akan kemungkinan lebih banyak pakai bahasa Inggris karena itu yang saya paling rasa nyaman dan paling natural. Okay, so as per schedule, I'm here to talk about my experiences and the beginnings of how I reached my research and my delve into STEM and math, into the fields of research and sciences as I am currently studying in. But the very first beginning of how I entered this research life was early in my life when I was in primary 4, which if you think about it, is very early in the person's life to be going into research. My very first experiences with research was this specific research, a wet alarm for baby in the Kobe Junior Scientist Awards. I will delve into what exactly is the wet alarm for baby and how it actually how it came to be. But before talking about the wet alarm baby, I need to talk about my sister, because most of the stuff that I do in my research are usually done in collaboration with her. So, uh, who are we at the first time? So, the very beginning of my research, my delve into research was sparked because me and my sister had a idea in our heads, and apparently we wanted to like find a way to circumvent that problem. And it so happens that a competition called the Junior Scientist Awards was available, so we tried to enter it and figure it out, and hence the beginning of our research. So, as I've restated that, wait, there's something in my, so about the well alarm for baby. The inspiration came about from my form teacher. She tends to be rather absent because most of the time she would be taking care of her young baby, which constantly gets sick. Now I once asked her, why does the baby get sick, and she answered with, no, you that the baby tends to get sick, and the reason why she gets sick is that she tends to like spoil herself when she was in bed. She likes to pee when the my teacher was about, and inevitably she tends to take care of the baby more often than she does come to school, and that creates a lot of problems for me because when there's no teacher, there's no learning. And for some reason, back in the day when I was in fourth grade, I really don't like the idea of not learning in a class. So it started out with care, and then I started being curious about how the teacher, and then it came up with an idea. How do I make the baby not have rashes? How do I make the teacher know that the baby has spoiled herself so that she can take care of it faster and prevent her from getting rashes? So the idea started with me brainstorming, and I had like the idea of maybe an extra absorbent Pampers, but the baby doesn't like wearing Pampers, so I don't like, maybe an alarm perhaps. Then I start thinking, but if it's an alarm, then how does the baby press the alarm, and how does the alarm know? And they're like, wait, how about if when it's the baby alarm and then it triggers a sensor, and then it keeps spinning around and spinning around in my head, and I keep asking my sister about it, and eventually we came up with the idea of a wet alarm for baby. So we started like thinking about the alarm. What kind should it be? Should it be a what kind of alarm should it be? Should it be a like should it be a normal alarm, or should it be like what kind? And then we started thinking of what kind of alarm should we like. What's the most accessible kind of alarm? And we thought, oh, bell doors. So we actually went about and bought bell doors and modified it. Now, I have the device right here as an example. It's very rudimentary. This is like, how old is this? 9 years old already. I don't know if it's actually works, but I'm gonna try to like present to you the if it's gonna work. So I'm gonna can if anyone can like focus on myself. This is the alarm right here, and this is the sensor. It's just little two buttons. Now, by the nature of water, which is electroconductive, when I put water on this, it's gonna create a full circuit, and it's gonna act like a button being pressed. So let's hope this works. Oh wait, it is. So It's absolutely very rudimentary. It's it. So the idea is to just put this underneath the baby, underneath their like chassel or their cloth, so that when the baby wets himself, the cloth gets wet, and then the water seeps through, and then inevitably reach the sensors and create a closed loop, which turns on the alarm. Now, the the idea at the first time I thought it was rudimentary, and I was like thinking like how do I came about this? And many people think about you couldn't have thought about that. You were like grade 4, but during in my class in my grade 4, we had a interesting like class in which we were taught simple electronics. That's when I met my teacher, and then from that teacher I learned many things about electronics. I even technically soldered this myself, if if that were to be believed, when I was 4 years old, when I was in grade 4. uh, so we developed the idea, and we inevitably presented it to the panel of judges in Calbe Junior Scientist Awards. And it was my first experience presenting in front of juries in a scientific panel. And I'll tell you, it was a very nerve-wracking experience. Most of the time I didn't speak. I let my sister speak. But when it comes to like displaying and show explaining how the device works, that's usually where I come up. And I would usually stutter because it was my very first time. But nevertheless, I get the hang to it, to the point that I can speak normally, more normally in English than I do in Indonesian. So the fact that it was, and the even more exciting part was that it was broadcast. The Kobe Science Fair was broadcast in TV1 and TV National. It was my first experience being on television. That itself was also nerve-wracking. I meet so many different like scientists and famous speakers, to the point that I might at the time I was totally speechless and totally shivering in my pants, because oh my god, so many cool people around me. Do I belong here? And like, am I now a part of this? And the moment I realize that I am a part of it, it just makes it even more cooler. So this is me with Unil and all of the people of the generations of the KJS at the time, and also my trophy. It was, when I got the trophy, I was like, oh my god, it's gold. I never had gold before then. I mostly gotten like silvers and like normal, like rudimentary. But the moment I get gold, I was like, oh god, oh god. And it gets even better. I met the, what's the word, vice president. I'm like, you can see little me like second to the left of him, and I still can't like fathom the fact that when I was that old, I got to meet him in person. So after that, it gets even more media coverage by magazines and all that stuff. And eventually, I even got um, implemented into a book. Like, 4-year-old me into a book, right there. This is insane. And you can technically still find this in Gramedia, and I still can't like fathom the fact of that. So after all of that, it really, it makes sense, right? After all of that, after all the excitement of all of the amazing things that I experienced, that I would continue to delve further into the field. So I started going into Olympiads, and then I started doing more ideas. I started to do research in my house, even though it's not part of a competition. And I continued to use problem solvings in my days and practice public speakings, and eventually build my confidence to the point that I believe that nothing is technically impossible. And since the very first beginning of my research was something based on engineering, I never really made it to be my life goal to be an engineer in my life. So I'm to the point that I'm learning in college to be an engineer. So why do we start doing research? Is again, this is the journey of the three of the, I'll say, steps, I suppose. Start started with LPBSU, as Afri had. I joined it. I did it twice, to the point I reached internationals twice as well. One in the Asian Pacific level, and the other into the fully international level. First, the Pacific level I went to with LED as a solar cell, which is also derived from the same reason as Afri, is that I hate the blackouts in Medan, to the point that I want to try to find a different source of energy. And then the Braille for Literary Helper, that in itself is another story. If people want to know, I will deliberate on that further. And the most crucial and most recent one was the one that I did with NASA to check out a space program. So this is me testing my LEDs at home. It was, again, it's most of my research seems when I do it at home are usually seems rudimentary, but the technicals and the theory behind it are usually what I try to delve into furthest. And this is the Braille Helper. We went to a Tunanetra camp to understand the problems that they face, and how to technically help them, and ask for their consultations on how to exactly make the devices. Because the origin of this, we went to it once and we saw the problems that they face, and it makes us want to help. So it makes us want to do the Braille literacy helper and all stuff. And this is the flow charts, codings, and I can delve further into this if you want. But inevitably, after all of this, we actually won 2 gold medals in the internationals, one for the poster and one for the presentations. I did it with my sister as a team, which again, this is all my other future achievements further and further. Uh, uh, but that's, and here are the other 2 crucial one. The one on the top right in the 2018 one was after the winning of the international levels. I was thinking that maybe this is the end, but I actually continued further developing it, and I actually sent a proposal to a World Ophthalmologist Conference, a more, I say, professional conference for ophthalmologists. And I wasn't hoping much, that I didn't think that they would accept me, but to my own surprise, they actually accepted me. So I actually got to present my Braille literacy helper to a panel of actual like ophthalmologists and people in the eye medical field to actually get their feedback and understands. And the other one next to it was with NASA, in which I sent a research up into space, and I'm gonna delve into further in that. So the Check Out Space program, I'm wearing the same jacket right now, was, I say, one of my pinnacle, I suppose. This is the pinnacle of my research career, is that uh, in this, I work with a team instead of just being with my sister or myself, and it helps me delve into more research and teamwork. My sister was the project leader, and I was the lead engineer, and we had to work with NASA, work with one another, and work with like technology institutes, NASA Quest for Space Science, and the Center for Young Research in Indonesia. And I'm saying it was actually sent to the NASA ISS. So the research that we did in NASA was this right here, an observation of slime mold inside 3D maze. Now, delving into exactly what happened there might take a lot longer than the time that it takes, but essentially we had an organism. It was a slime mold. A slime mold is like a weird organism, a protist that looks sort of like this. It's usually it's a it's a multicellular organism that usually live in colonies. That the interesting part is that it seems rather capable of problem solving, even though it doesn't seem to have sentience. So that's the interesting part. Went to NASA Ames Research Centers to talk about with NASA scientists, and thinking about it like now, like fourth grade, like 10-year-old me when I was in fourth grade, I wouldn't fathom the fact that I might work with NASA, but hey, I worked with NASA now. So this is the nano lab, the research, the things, and this is my rudimentary designs. It to spend to the express. I had to go through multiple like material testings and like brief checks with the NASA scientists to ensure that all of the specifications are up to their standards and sent to the ISS. Uh, and this is one of the pictures of the space launch. It low orbital ATK during May 24th, was it? Yeah, May 24th. It was sent to the ISS and then spent up there for like a month until it was returned back to Earth. So, and then as part of it, we had like a ground unit in the ISS to the point that we had to cost check and to be more meticulous. The part of being meticulous was the hardest part, I suppose, because we had to do even to the point that we had to like send the ISS through an electron to send the slime mold through an electron microscope to actually see the differences inside the slime molds to see a more in-depth thing to. So after we did, and then we got invited to the American Society for Gravitational and Space Research, and we presented to the point we were given an honorable mention and to be placed on the top 5 teams of the one that did the ISS junior high research. And you can actually find out the research. It's on the NASA website. There's supposed to be a link down in the chat. You can find it there. And inevitably, this is what got me and my sister to be accepted into colleges involving aerospace. My sister got into Berkeley Aerophysics, and I am in Davis in Aerospace Science and Engineering. So, as Alfred said his presentation, is that most of the ideas like before NASA, most of it came from everyday problems. Like even right now, I have multiple ideas that I have in my head that I am still doing research and testings even at home. Most of them came from my everyday problems and from like ideas that I got from talking to people on social media, from YouTube, and just me delving into the cracks in my head in which I don't exactly know the origins of. Which because researching and like mission is equal parts curiosity, caring, and attentiveness because all of everything in the world right now is technically can be used as an idea even though you might not seem like it. So you just gotta know where to look and you just gotta know how to see it. It's kind of about perspectives. So most of the times when I try to cultivate my ideas, I usually talk with someone, discussion, write it down, something like a toad. And this is one thing that I try to make sure is that I set up a schedule. As I said once about collision of times when he was in a band, I was actually part of my school's orchestra as well. And I had to like balance my schedule with them. So I make sure to like whenever I'm in specific areas in my home that I will only do research, only do orchestra stuff, and only do school stuff. So I make sure that I balance things out. Now, I'm not, and I know currently in the world right now is that there is so many different problems that we can't do research technically at home, but technically we can still because our phones are very capable because there's like many apps in our daily phones and our apps that can actually do research. I'm actually using one of the apps right now to like do a research. Particularly, I'm using my phone's uh, compass to actually test magnetic stuff about magnets. And I'm just gonna gloss over the steps of doing research science because, and I'm gonna also gloss this because, as Harvey said, science is always interesting. Explore yourself. Never let your dreams die. Just being a dream, make it happen. Because even the sky is not the limit. The sky is just the beginning. And thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pras. That was
Yes,
like amazing.